What's going on, you guys? Welcome on back to the channel. Now, it's been 2 years since Two Blue Vortex has been in serialization, and within those 2 years, a lot has happened. We've had really great character moments, we've had great plot twists, we've had great story developments, but one thing that has remained consistent for me is I've always been wondering what is going on with Momoshiki. Momoshiki is one of those characters that has truly been elusive because he's such an important character, but he's also such an enigma within the story, and we don't know when he's going to come back. But I've actually been thinking, I think we've actually been seeing Momoshiki sprinkled in all along. We just haven't seen him in physical form. Now you're probably thinking, what are you talking about? The last time we saw Momoshiki was in part one, where he was screaming at Boruto, telling him to give him control of his body, and Boruto being resolute and not giving him control. Yes, that was the last time we saw him in physical form, but I actually think we've seen him like sneakily sprinkled in throughout the narrative, and that all has to do with the karma marking. Now, what I mean by this is every time Kawaki has been in close contact with Boruto using his karma marking, we see Boruto have to run away, right? He has to move away to a different location to get his karma to calm down. We saw it earlier in the series when Boruto and Kawaki were having a little skirmish on the rooftop, and Boruto had to split the second he saw Kawaki's karma resonating with his. Then most recently in the most recent chapter in the desert, we saw that when Kawaki's karma was activated, Boruto essentially had to retreat from the fight just so he could pinpoint his pin and also to get his karma marking to calm down. He was essentially telling it to relax. Now, a lot of people chop that all up to being that's just Boruto's karma marking resonating with Boruto's. And at first, I agreed with that. I thought it was mostly just resonance at that point because that's what we've seen throughout the whole story, right? We pretty much had that to believe. We always believed that because that's how it was always presented to us within the story was resonance. But I actually think that that's all a setup. I think now this is Momoshiki using the guise of resonance to fight for control of Boruto's body and reemerge that way and come back into the story like that. Now, it doesn't make now I know what you're thinking. Doesn't make sense. But what is the common denominator here, right? It always has to do with Kawaki like resonating and activating the karma. And the reason why that's why Momoshiki is trying to come back is because of Boruto himself. Boruto has essentially cut off any other way for Momoshiki to reemerge. Perfect example. In part one of Boruto, we see like Boruto heavily relying on the karma marking in fights. We see him expending a lot of chakra, and both of these give Momoshiki those avenues to reemerge within the story, right? If he expels too much chakra, it gives Momoshiki that opening to come back into the story that way. If he uses the karma marking too much, it also gives him that opening as well. So in Two Blue Vortex, we've seen Boruto become a very calm, rational, and level-headed person. Aside from a few blips where he saw Hidari for this first time, you don't really see Boruto as a character lose control too much. Like he is very in check with his emotions, primarily within the story. And what I've noticed too throughout Two Blue Vortex is he's going out of his way to not use certain techniques, right? He's limiting how much chakra he's expending. He's not using the Shadow Clone Jutsu because it expends too much chakra. And because of that, it gives Momoshiki that opening to come back into the story. He's not using, so that's why he's not using it. He's not using the karma because, like I said, it gives Momoshiki that opening to come back. So, because of all this, because Boruto is cutting off all these different ways for Momoshiki to reemerge, Momoshiki is looking for any possible way to come back. And the opening that he sees is Kawaki. Kawaki is his opening in order to take over Boruto. So he's using the guise of resonance as a way to come back into the story. That's why whenever Kawaki's karma starts to activate and Boruto's resonates, it isn't actually resonance. It's Momoshiki in that moment fighting for control of Boruto's body with all that he has. And that's why Boruto looks so scared every time his karma activates, because he knows that's Momoshiki trying to fight back. Like we even saw Boruto talk about stuff that we didn't see within the story, where it felt like every time his karma marking was activating, he felt like he was going to die. That's essentially what it is every time Kawaki activates his karma for him. He feels like he's dying. He feels like Momoshiki is coming back and taking control of his body so he can reemerge and be the only one in control of the body. So Boruto, every time the karma activates, he has to fight with everything he has to push Momoshiki back, so that way, in Boruto's words, he doesn't die. That is what I think is happening when the karma marking resonates. At first, I thought it was resonance. I don't think it is anymore. I think it's Momoshiki launching a full scale attack in order to take over Boruto's body. That's why we haven't seen Momoshiki, because Boruto has cut off all these different routes for him to get in control of the body. And it isn't going to be like a Kurama situation because the two hate each other, right? Like Boruto literally said, the karma marking makes it feel like he's dying. So we're never going to see like a Kurama esque thing for them. They straight up hate each other. So if you ever want to see Momoshiki within the story, it has to be in a case where like Boruto can't get away from Kawaki activating his karma, and he doesn't have that time to really push back the karma. So that's what I think is going on with Momoshiki. Essentially, we haven't seen it within the narrative because Boruto has essentially cut off every possible route for him to reemerge. But there's one route open, and that route is Kawaki. Because everybody's been wondering when Kawaki is going to take center stage again. And that's happening now. And it's going to allow for villains like Momoshiki to reemerge. And that I'm very much looking forward to. Because I've been waiting for Momoshiki to come back for the longest time, right? I've been making so many different videos of when he could possibly return. I think now we have our answer. I think it's going to come down to the fact Boruto can't get away. Kawaki is activating his karma, and that is when Momoshiki could reemerge. If Boruto doesn't have the strength to fight him back anymore. Because Boruto, throughout the entire story, has had so much mental resolve to push Momoshiki back each and every time his karma is activated. But there's going to come a point where Boruto's mental resolve isn't strong anymore, where it takes a hit, and that is when Momoshiki can strike through the karma, and that's when he can come back. If Boruto is just so at a loss, if Boruto loses somebody close to him, that's when all bets are off, and that's when I think Momoshiki makes an attack to take over Boruto's body, because that's when Boruto will be at his mentally weakest. And like I said, man, the next upcoming chapters are going to be very key if this is true. I actually think this is the best possible way for Momoshiki to come back in the story. It makes the most sense because I don't see Boruto giving control up to his body willingly. So this, in my opinion, is the only way that makes sense. And Boruto losing control of his body because of his brother, that hits the most. That hits the most, in my opinion. But let me know what you guys think. How do you guys feel about this theory? Do you guys think that Momoshiki is using the karma resonance as a disguise to attack Boruto and try to take over his body? Let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, subscribe, and as always, I'm going to talk to you guys next time. Bye.